In the heart of the battlefield, Lu Shang was an unstoppable force. Suddenly, a mutant beast, larger and more fearsome than the rest, lunged at Lu Shang, its body wreathed in flames. The beast's fiery form cast a menacing glow across the battlefield, illuminating the determined expression on Lu Shang's face. Without missing a beat, he clenched his fist tightly and, gripping his spear with the other hand, executed a swift and powerful slash under the beast's jaw. The beast's mouth opened wide as it let out a screech of agony, its cries reverberating through the air. As the beast writhed in pain, another predator, a wolf-like creature with glowing eyes, attempted a surprise attack. It leapt at Lu Shang, jaws wide open, ready to tear into him. But Lu Shang was ready. His eyes, burning with a fiery aura, locked onto the beast. He gripped his spear with both hands, the muscles in his arms tensing as he prepared to strike. With a powerful blow to the beast's abdomen, he ended its life in a single, decisive move. The victory was short-lived as several more mutant beasts emerged from the shadows, their eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. Seeing their numbers, Lu Shang decided to change his strategy. He gathered his energy, feeling the power surge through his body. With a mighty leap, he soared into the air, a golden flash illuminating his form. Flames erupted around him, casting a radiant glow that made the beasts below tremble in fear. Hovering above them, Lu Shang's gaze bore into the beasts. With a confident smile, he taunted them, calling them little bugs and mocking their futile attempts. Then, with a powerful strike, he descended upon them like a wrathful deity. The ground shook with the impact, and the beasts were obliterated in a single, sweeping blow. 3 days passed in this relentless cycle of battle. At this moment, the soldiers who had been saved by Lu Shang stood in awe, their expressions a mix of shock and admiration. For 3 days and 3 nights, they had witnessed Lu Shang's unrelenting battle against the otherworldly beasts. His endurance and prowess were beyond anything they had ever seen, and it left them speechless. An old man, a seasoned warrior with a deeply furrowed brow, placed a trembling hand on a sack that had been fashioned into a makeshift barricade. Sweat trickled down his forehead as he peered over the barricade, his eyes scanning the battlefield. He wondered if the number of mutant beasts had finally begun to decrease, a faint hope flickering in his heart. Beside the old soldier stood a burly comrade, his hand severed in a previous skirmish, but his spirit unbroken. With a cigar clamped between his teeth and a large machine gun slung over his shoulder, he exhaled a plume of smoke and gazed at Lu Shang with a look of sheer amazement. "Lu Shang is on another level," he remarked to the old soldier, his voice filled with admiration. "He's like the sun, and those beasts are nothing but insects drawn to the light." As if to underscore his point, a giant mutant beast suddenly lunged at Lu Shang. Without missing a beat, Lu Shang leaped into the air, his body crackling with lightning. Gripping his spear with both hands, he executed a swift and effortless strike, severing the beast's head from its body. The creature's lifeless form crumpled to the ground with a resounding thud. Lu Shang's eyes shone with an intense, almost otherworldly light as he placed a hand on his chest. From within, his inner Dan emerged, emitting a powerful golden energy. He stared intently at the glowing orb, noting that the number of beasts in the area had significantly decreased. The once overwhelming horde had been decimated by his relentless onslaught. The inner Dan, a source of immense power, had also diminished in size, a testament to the countless battles he had fought. As the seconds ticked by, the beast's corpse fell to the ground, its blood mingling with the already sodden earth. Lu Shang turned his head slightly, his gaze lingering on the fallen creature. A pang of regret washed over him. The battlefield was littered with the bodies of slain beasts, yet he had no means to extract even a single drop of the precious, otherworldly marrow fluid from them. He knew that with enough resources and the relentless pressure of the war zone, his gains could be immensely abundant. Lu Shang gripped his spear tightly, the weight of the battle etched on his face. Golden thunder crackled around his body, a testament to the immense power he had unlocked. In this intense combat, he had surpassed his previous limits, achieving the unrivaled state. This new state allowed him to harness both the will of a master and various elemental abilities simultaneously. His combat strength had skyrocketed, reaching heights he had only dreamed of. This was the perfection he had been seeking in martial arts. Lost in his thoughts, Lu Shang was abruptly brought back to reality by the ringing of his wireless headphones. General Yu Fei's voice crackled through the device, inquiring about his location. Snapping out of his trance, Lu Shang glanced at the headphones, momentarily surprised at the wide signal range. Before he could respond, another mutant beast lunged at him. Instinctively, he unsheathed his spear and gripped it with both hands. His body was now enveloped by powerful red thunderbolts. With a fixed stare, he swung his spear with tremendous force, cutting the beast's body clean in half. The creature's lifeless form collapsed to the ground, adding to the pile of defeated foes. Breathing heavily, Lu Shang looked at the fallen beast, and then addressed General Yu Fei through the headphones. "I'm on the battlefield," he explained, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "The situation is a bit tense, but it's a good place for training. I don't want to leave just yet." His eyes shone with determination as he looked ahead. The battlefield, with its constant danger and high stakes, was the perfect environment for honing his skills. It was here that he could push his limits, evolve his techniques, and truly test the bounds of his strength. With a confident smile, he continued, "I might stay here for a few more days before returning." The battlefield was not just a place of peril. It was a crucible, a forge where his abilities could be refined to perfection. At the same time, back at the base, General Yu Fei held his phone in one hand, his face etched with confusion. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he processed Lu Shang's words. He turned his head toward the phone, his surprise evident, and assured Lu Shang that it was okay for him to stay a few more days on the battlefield. "Our front line isn't under much pressure," he said, his voice steady despite the tension. "We can handle it without you for a bit longer." However, his tone shifted as he revealed a new development. "But there's trouble on the western front line. A war zone of rampaging beasts has emerged." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken danger. On the western front line, Lu Shang landed gracefully, his spear held firmly in one hand. He placed his other hand on his wireless headphones, his expression calm and unbothered. "Is this true?" he asked General Yu Fei, his voice betraying no hint of concern. General Yu Fei's face paled as he held the phone tighter, panic creeping into his voice. "The beast stampede is out of control," he admitted, his tone urgent. "You must not go near that area under any circumstances. It's extremely dangerous. Please, Lu Shang, promise me you won't go." Hearing the worry in General Yu Fei's voice, Lu Shang touched his wireless headphones with his finger, a small smile playing on his lips. He closed his eyes and tilted his head back, a laugh escaping his lips. "Don't worry," he said, his voice light and teasing. "I'll be obedient. I won't go anywhere near there." Behind Lu Shang, a mountain of beast corpses lay smoldering in the flames, the result of his relentless combat. He slid his spear behind his back, turning away from the burning remains. As he walked away, he touched his wireless headphones again, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "I'm very obedient," he repeated amidst laughter. "I definitely won't go there." His words were light, but his actions had always been driven by a deeper purpose. At the same time, Old Tao, with his head heavily bandaged, lay on the floor behind a makeshift trench. Slowly, he began to stir, opening his eyes to the chaotic scene around him. He groaned softly, the pain in his head throbbing as he supported himself with one hand on the ground. Sitting up, he touched his bandaged head with the other hand and closed his eyes briefly, trying to gather his thoughts. "What's happening?" he asked, his voice weak but filled with concern. Next to him, an old soldier rested his hands on the trench wall. Upon seeing Old Tao regain consciousness, a wave of relief washed over him. "Thank heaven," he muttered, his gratitude palpable. As the two men conversed, the ground suddenly shook, and the massive corpse of a mutant beast fell from the sky, landing with a thunderous crash near the trench. The sound jolted Old Tao wide awake. His eyes snapped open, and he quickly placed both hands on the ground, scrambling to his feet. The old soldier also leaned against the wall, his face a mask of shock. What on earth is happening? Old Tao wondered aloud, his voice tinged with fear. Just then, Lu Shang descended from the sky, landing gracefully near them. His spear hung casually over his shoulder, and his hands were tucked into his pants pockets. He gazed at the ground with a calm, assessing look, seemingly unfazed by the chaos around him. The bald soldier and Old Tao stood up, their eyes widening in amazement as they realized it was Lu Shang who had felled the giant mutant beast. They exchanged looks of disbelief, marveling at the young man's strength and skill. Lu Shang turned his head slightly toward them, a drop of sweat glistening on his cheek. His expression was serious as he spoke. "There's something serious in which I need your help," he said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Upon hearing this, both Old Tao and the bald soldier straightened up. They placed their hands near their foreheads in a military salute, ready to assist. The old man looked at Lu Shang and responded with a firm, yes. Tell us what you need. Lu Shang's gaze shifted between the two men. Which one of you knows how to cook? He asked, his question unexpected and surprising. Both Old Tao and the bald soldier exchanged puzzled glances, their expressions a mix of confusion and curiosity. They had been prepared for a dangerous mission or a strategic maneuver, but a request for a cook was entirely unforeseen. At the same time, in the command center of the 9th Combat Zone in the east, where the military base was located, the atmosphere was tense but focused. The recent surge of the SS rank spatial crack had finally subsided, though it had taken 2 days longer than anticipated. The relief was palpable, but there was also an undercurrent of urgency and concern. Inside an office of the Eastern 9th War Zone, a high-level meeting was underway, led by Great General He Dingjun. The room was filled with several high-ranking military officials seated around a large table. At the head of the table sat Great General He Dingjun, a formidable presence with his black hair, piercing green eyes, and distinctive eye patch. Behind him, a large screen displayed a detailed map of the battlefield, highlighting various hotspots and strategic points. One of the military officials stood and addressed the general. Great General He Dingjun, I have already sent you the detailed statistics on casualties, he reported, his voice steady despite the gravity of the news. He Dingjun, one of the 4 great generals of the Eastern Military Zone, rested his elbows on the table. He clenched his fist with one hand and wore a serious expression. Thank you, he responded, his voice deep and commanding. Although the attack on the SS rank spatial crack was not initiated by us, it has revealed significant weaknesses in our supervision and defense of spatial cracks within the Eastern Military District. His words hung heavily in the room, each syllable resonating with the weight of responsibility. We must take this incident as a stern warning, He Dingjun continued. In the future, we need to enhance our supervision and defense measures to prevent such lapses. Furthermore, during this spatial crack operation, the performance of our generals from the 9th Combat Zone has not been up to the mark. The tension in the room grew as He Dingjun's assessment sunk in. He glanced around the table, making eye contact with each official, his gaze unwavering. I will organize a meeting with these generals face to face to address these issues and ensure that we learn from our mistakes. At that moment, a soldier with striking purple hair and glasses stood up, saluting sharply. Great General He Dingjun, I will take care of it immediately, he declared, his voice filled with determination. Great General He Dingjun, with his commanding presence and sharp gaze, turned towards the purple-haired soldier. His eyes bore into the young man with a serious intensity. Why are you in such a hurry? He Dingjun asked, his voice calm but filled with authority. We haven't yet solved the bigger problem at hand. The purple-haired soldier paused, his initial confidence waning under the general's piercing scrutiny. Before he could respond, a brown-haired soldier, seated nearby, nervously interjected. His anxiety was evident in his fidgeting hands and the worried look in his eyes. The general is right, the brown-haired soldier said, his voice shaky but earnest. Defense line number 8 has collapsed. The 833rd Division, under General Fengbashi's command, has just sent a request for reinforcements. The room fell silent as the gravity of the situation sank in. The blue-haired soldier, who had been sitting quietly next to the brown-haired soldier, looked at Great General He Dingjun with a solemn expression but remained silent, sensing the tension rising in the room. Upon hearing about General Fengbashi's request for reinforcements, Great General He Dingjun clenched his fist in frustration. With a sudden, forceful motion, he struck the table, causing the other officials to jump in their seats. Even if we had reinforcements, He Dingjun began, his voice a low growl, we would not send them to him. The shocked officials exchanged worried glances, unable to understand the source of He Dingjun's anger. The great general stood up abruptly, his eyes blazing with determination and frustration. Defense line number 8 isn't even considered a second-stage war zone, he said, his voice rising. How dare General Fengbashi request reinforcements for such a minor position? He Dingjun's gaze swept across the room, locking eyes with each official, ensuring they understood the gravity of his words. Tell General Fengbashi to rebuild the defense line himself. I want to hear news by tomorrow morning that defense line number 8 has been re-established. The tension in the room was palpable. The officials sat in stunned silence, absorbing the general's stern orders. He Dingjun's aggressive gaze made it clear there was no room for negotiation or failure. And if it cannot be done, He Dingjun continued, his voice steely, Then I expect to hear of General Fengbashi's sacrifice in defending the 8th War Zone. The military officials, galvanized by the great general's resolve, responded in unison, understood. Great General He Dingjun, with both hands clasped behind his back, stared intently at the large display screen that showcased the frontline map, the contours and markings delineating the zones of intense conflict against the mutant beasts. He spoke, his voice a steady, authoritative baritone that commanded the room's attention. In this battle against the mutant beasts, out of our 20 military generals, 12 have sacrificed their lives along with their units. His words hung heavily in the air, a somber reminder of the high stakes they were all facing. Commanders at 7th rank martial-level skills and certain military knowledge are crucial human resources. These losses are not just numbers. They are significant blows to our operational capabilities. As he approached the map, his gaze sharpened, taking in the red marks that indicated emergency areas due to the spatial crack uprising. He Dingjun's eyes narrowed as he analyzed the distribution of forces and the status of each defense line. The high casualties weighed heavily on his mind, a grim testament to the ferocity of the battles and the relentless assault of the mutant beasts. Look at these red marks, he instructed his subordinates, gesturing towards the areas in dire need of reinforcements. These are our emergency zones. The spatial crack uprising has exacerbated the situation, creating multiple hotspots that need immediate attention. His eyes scanned the map, pausing as he noticed something unusual. Amidst the sea of red, there was a solitary blue dot. His eyebrows knitted together in curiosity and concern. Pointing at the blue, with a finger, he asked, "What is this?" The defense line of the 1182 Regiment seems to be the only area that has remained stable. Who is in charge of this sector? A man with black hair, wearing glasses and clutching a stack of reports, stepped forward. "Sir, General Yu Fei is in charge of the 1182 Regiment, he reported. According to the latest intelligence, the 1182 Regiment has performed outstandingly well. They have not only maintained their defense line but have also provided substantial support to the surrounding sectors, greatly contributing to the stability of nearby defenses." He Dingjun nodded thoughtfully, his hand moving to rest under his chin. His eyes remained fixed on the map, the blue dot representing a beacon of hope amidst the turmoil. "General Yu Fei," he mused aloud, "a very interesting man indeed." As he pondered the situation, his thoughts drifted to a promising young candidate he had heard about not too long ago. "I remember," he began, speaking more to himself than to his subordinates, "headquarters recently recruited a talented individual, personally nurtured by Marshal Saint Tan Zhongyu. The boy, Lu Shang, was recommended to the military by none other than General Yu Fei." The mention of Lu Shang brought a spark of intrigue to He Dingjun's eyes. "Lu Shang," he repeated, as if testing the name on his tongue. "A young prodigy, groomed by a martial saint and endorsed by a seasoned general. He might be the key to our future strategies." Great General He Dingjun stood before the large display screen, his eyes reflecting a mixture of curiosity and admiration. As he took in the information on the screen, a rare smile played on his lips. He thought about Lu Shang, an extraordinary young man who had achieved the status of a grandmaster at such a tender age. The fact that Lu Shang had managed to accomplish so much, including defeating several seasoned martial masters and even provoking the formidable Ji Dao martial school, was nothing short of astonishing. Shaking his head in disbelief, He Dingjun couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. "Impressive," he murmured to himself, "truly impressive." With his hands now clasped behind his back, he approached the map, his laughter echoing through the room. The subordinates around him straightened up, sensing that the great general was about to give an important command. "Inform General Yu Fei that once this warzone matter is resolved, he should come to see me," He Dingjun ordered, his voice carrying a tone of both authority and expectation. The black-haired man wearing glasses, who had been diligently recording the details, nodded in acknowledgement. "Yes, sir," he replied promptly. With that settled, He Dingjun turned his attention back to the map, his demeanor shifting from lighthearted to serious. He studied the map intently, his gaze eventually fixing on a particularly large red dot. This dot, more prominent than the others, represented a critical point in their defense strategy. Placing a hand on the map, He Dingjun's expression grew more intense. "This defense line worries me the most," he explained to his subordinates. "It acts as a funnel surrounding the spatial rift. Now that this funnel has broken, it was only a matter of time before we saw significant breaches." He Dingjun's voice grew grave as he issued another command. We need immediate intel on the current situation at this location. Check it now. The map on the display screen began to fade, replaced by a live feed and data streams from the eastern defense line. He Dingjun put his hands behind his back once more, his eyes glued to the screen in silent anticipation. The room was tense, the only sounds being the soft hum of the equipment and the distant murmurs of the officers. Several seconds later, the system finished processing the data, and the feed from the eastern defense line came into full view. What He Dingjun saw made his expression change drastically. The defense line appeared calm, eerily so. There were no signs of the mutant beasts that had previously breached the line. The tranquility was unsettling. Where are the beasts? He Dingjun asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. I remember the defense line being breached. How is it possible that there are no mutant beasts ravaging the area? His subordinates exchanged puzzled glances, equally baffled by the scene before them. Great General He Dingjun's eyes were fixed on the display screen, the tension in the room palpable. Behind him, a man with blue hair held a tablet, his fingers trembling as he controlled the live feed. The screen flickered, showing different segments of the battlefield. The general's face was set in a grim mask of determination, but there was an undercurrent of worry that he couldn't shake. Suddenly, He Dingjun turned sharply towards the blue-haired man, his expression intense. Change the camera, he ordered, his voice a low growl. I need to see the situation on the battlefield. The blue-haired man swallowed hard, feeling a wave of fear wash over him. The general's serious demeanor and commanding presence were enough to make anyone nervous, but in the midst of such a critical situation, the pressure was almost unbearable. Understood, he replied, his voice shaky as he began to adjust the camera feeds. As the screen shifted to show a new angle, the general's expression changed drastically. His eyes widened in shock, and he was left momentarily speechless. The live footage from a drone in the area revealed a startling sight. The defense line near the spatial rift was littered with a mountain of beast corpses. At the center of this grim tableau stood a lone figure, radiating a powerful golden energy. It was Lu Shang. He was surrounded by the remnants of his brutal battle, his body emanating an aura of immense power. He stood silently, his gaze fixed on the corpses of the mutant beasts that lay at his feet. The drone hovered closer, providing a clearer view of the scene. Lu Shang held a spear in one hand, the weapon gleaming ominously in the dim light. His eyes, sharp and penetrating, scanned the area with a calm intensity. The room fell silent as everyone watched the feed, captivated by the sight of this young warrior who had single-handedly turned the tide of battle. He Dingjun's heart raced as he tried to process what he was seeing. This can't be happening, he thought, his mind struggling to comprehend the enormity of Lu Shang's feat. As the drone continued to film, Lu Shang suddenly turned his gaze towards it, his eyes locking onto the camera with an unflinching stare. The power of his presence was palpable, even through the screen. He Dingjun felt a surge of panic. This young man, who had managed to stop the beast's attack on his own, was unlike anything he had ever seen. In a moment of desperation, He Dingjun grabbed the blue-haired man by the shoulders, his eyes wide with urgency. Who is this person? He shouted, his voice echoing through the room. Find out everything you can about him now. The blue-haired man, already shaken, felt his fear intensify. Yes, sir, he stammered, his hands fumbling as he began to access the database. Please, don't worry. I'll get the information immediately. At the same time, in the wilderness of the Western Military Zone, the aftermath of a fierce battle was evident. Several corpses of mutant beasts lay sprawled on the ground. Their grotesque forms a testament to the ferocity of the fight. Amidst the carnage, a girl with striking red hair moved with lethal grace. Her twin swords gleamed ominously as she climbed onto the back of a still-writhing beast, plunging one of her swords deep into its flesh. The beast let out a blood-curdling scream, its mouth wide open in agony. Several seconds later, its body went limp, lifeless. With one sword still embedded in the beast's carcass, the red-haired girl used her free hand to yank out the other sword. She wiped the sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand, her eyes scanning the surroundings with a mix of vigilance and determination. Bringing her purple earpiece closer to her lips, she spoke in a calm, measured tone. For down. 3 rank 5 beasts and 1 rank 6 beast. A crackle of static was followed by a response from the other end. Copy that. I've taken care of 2 on my end. She nodded, her expression serious. We're nearing the breaking point of the defense line. Meet me at the coordinates I just sent. Understood, Captain, came the reply, the voice tinged with respect. She turned back to survey the scene, the bodies of the mutant beasts lying motionless at her feet. With both swords held firmly, she emitted a powerful golden energy that radiated from her form, casting an ethereal glow around her. She looked around, her brow furrowing in confusion. "This doesn't add up," she muttered to herself. The headquarters reported that the defense line was breached by a massive horde of mutant beasts. Why are there so few here? Her mind raced as she tried to piece together the situation. It was strange, almost too quiet. The wilderness, usually teeming with the sounds of battle and the roars of mutant beasts, was eerily silent.